The yacht club's crystal chandeliers cast shadows that danced across faces worth more than my annual income. I adjusted my borrowed tie and watched my wife Jennifer glide through the crowd like she belonged here. Maybe she did. Maybe I was the one who didn't fit. "Another champagne, sir?" A server appeared beside me, silver tray gleaming. "Thanks." I grabbed a flute and surveyed the room. The annual Harbor Heights Yacht Club gala was the social event of our Massachusetts coastal town. Everyone who mattered showed up to see and be seen. Everyone who didn't matter, like me, tagged along as accessories. Jennifer laughed at something across the room. Her red dress caught the light perfectly, designer fabric that cost more than most people's rent. She worked hard for that dress, climbing the corporate ladder at TechFlow Solutions with ruthless determination. I admired her drive, even when it left me feeling like furniture in our marriage. "Danny, come meet someone." Jennifer waved me over with that bright smile she reserved for networking events. I weaved through clusters of conversations about stock portfolios and summer homes in the Hamptons. My work boots had been replaced by uncomfortable dress shoes that pinched my feet. 3 years running a boat repair shop had given me calloused hands that looked out of place holding delicate glassware. "This is my husband, Danny Morrison." Jennifer's hand found my arm. "Danny, this is Richard Blackwell. He's developing those luxury condos down by the marina." Richard Blackwell stood 6 feet tall with silver hair that probably cost more to maintain than my monthly mortgage. His suit was tailored to perfection, and his handshake felt like a business transaction. "Ah, the boat mechanic." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Jennifer tells me you fix engines." "I restore classic vessels, actually." The correction came out sharper than intended. 30-foot cabin cruisers, vintage sailboats, mostly for summer residents who want their toys pristine. "How quaint." Richard's attention had already shifted back to Jennifer. "You were saying about the waterfront development project?" I became invisible as they discussed zoning permits and profit margins. Jennifer's eyes lit up when she talked business. She leaned closer to Richard, laughing at his jokes, touching his arm when she made points. Standard networking behavior, I told myself. She was always like this at professional events. "I'll grab us some appetizers," I announced to no one in particular. The buffet table stretched along the back wall, loaded with delicacies I couldn't pronounce. I filled a plate with fancy cheese and crackers, listening to conversations that swirled around me like fog. "Richard Blackwell's got more money than sense," someone whispered behind me. "Just moved here from Boston. Divorced his wife for half her fortune. Throws cash around like confetti. Bought the harbor master a new boat just for expedited permits." I glanced back toward Jennifer and Richard. She was showing him something on her phone, their heads bent together conspiratorially. Her laugh carried across the room, bright and musical. When had she stopped laughing like that with me? "Danny Morrison, right?" A woman appeared beside me, tall, blonde, with the kind of artificial smile that screamed public relations. "I'm Amanda Cross, Jennifer's associate at TechFlow." "Right, Amanda. We've met at company parties." "Jennifer's doing amazing things with our client acquisition. Richard's been very interested in our services." Amanda's eyes followed my gaze across the room. "He's quite the catch, isn't he? Rich, powerful, available." Before we deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Something cold settled in my stomach. Available? Oh, you know what I mean. Eligible bachelor, new in town. Every woman here is angling for his attention. Amanda's smile turned predatory. "Jennifer's just being smart, cultivating important connections." I watched my wife lean closer to Richard as he whispered something in her ear. Her cheeks flushed pink, and she giggled like a schoolgirl. That giggle used to be mine. "Excuse me." I set down my plate and started across the room. Before I could reach them, Richard pulled out his wallet. He peeled off a crisp $100 bill and held it toward me like I was a servant. "Danny, isn't it? Be a good fellow and fetch Jennifer and me some more champagne. The good stuff, not that domestic swill." The room seemed to freeze. Conversations paused. Heads turned. I stared at the money in his outstretched hand, feeling heat creep up my neck. "Richard, that's not necessary," Jennifer said quickly, but she was smiling. Actually smiling. "Nonsense. A man should know his place." Richard's voice carried across the suddenly quiet space. "Some of us are born to lead, others to serve. Nothing wrong with honest work." The $100 bill fluttered between us like a flag of surrender. Around us, the yacht club crowd watched with the hungry anticipation of vultures circling roadside carnage. This was entertainment for them, dinner theater with real humiliation. I could take the money, play the role of the grateful working-class husband, thankful for scraps from the rich man's table. Smile and nod, and pretend this wasn't the most degrading moment of my adult life. Instead, I looked Richard Blackwell directly in his cold blue eyes. "Keep your money. I'm not your errand boy." The silence stretched taut as a fishing line. Jennifer's face went pale beneath her carefully applied makeup. "Danny, please," she whispered. Richard's smile turned razor-sharp. "Of course. My apologies." He tucked the bill back into his wallet with theatrical precision. "I simply assumed you might appreciate the opportunity to contribute to the evening's success." The crowd began to murmur again, sensing the show was over. But Richard wasn't finished. "Jennifer, would you care to continue our conversation somewhere more private? I have a suite at the Harbor Grand. We could discuss the development project in detail." My wife glanced at me, then back at Richard. For a moment I thought she might decline. Might remember she was married to the man standing 3 feet away. "That sounds perfect," she said. They walked away together, Jennifer's heels clicking against the marble floor like a countdown timer. She didn't look back, not once. I stood alone in the middle of the yacht club ballroom, surrounded by whispers and sideways glances. The taste of expensive champagne turned bitter in my mouth. Amanda Cross materialized beside me again, her predatory smile wider than before. "Well," she said cheerfully, "that was awkward." I sat in my truck outside the Harbor Grand Hotel for 20 minutes, engine running, hands gripping the steering wheel. The rational part of my brain kept insisting this was innocent. A business meeting, professional networking, my wife climbing the corporate ladder one handshake at a time. The other part of my brain, the part that remembered Richard's smug smile and Jennifer's flushed cheeks, wasn't buying it. My phone buzzed. Text message from Jennifer. "Working late. Don't wait up." Working late. At 10:30 on a Saturday night? In a hotel suite with a man who'd just publicly humiliated her husband. I turned off the engine and walked into the hotel lobby. The Harbor Grand was old money trying to look new, all marble floors and crystal fixtures that screamed expensive taste. The desk clerk was young, probably college-aged, with the kind of eager-to-please attitude that came from working for tips. "Good evening, sir. How can I help you?" My wife left her phone in the ballroom at the yacht club. I held up Jennifer's actual phone, which I'd lifted from her purse during the confusion after Richard's little performance. "She's meeting with Richard Blackwell. Could you ring his suite?" "Of course, sir." The clerk's fingers flew across his keyboard. "Mr. Blackwell is in the penthouse suite. Let me call up." While he dialed, I palmed the decoy phone I'd prepared earlier. Same model as Jennifer's, same case, loaded with a few strategic modifications. 3 years in the Coast Guard had taught me useful skills beyond engine repair. "I'm sorry, sir. No answer. Would you like me to try again?" "That's all right. I'll just leave it at the front desk. She can pick it up tomorrow." I handed him the decoy phone and pocketed Jennifer's real one. The clerk tagged it with a claim slip and tucked it into the lost and found drawer. "Have a wonderful evening, sir." "You too." I walked back to my truck feeling like a spy in a bad movie. But as I sat in the parking lot, Jennifer's phone in my hand, that feeling faded. This wasn't a game. This was my marriage dissolving in real time. Her phone was password protected, but I knew the code. Our anniversary date, which apparently still meant something to her security settings, if not her actual behavior. The text messages told the whole story. Richard. "Enjoyed meeting you tonight, very much." Jennifer. "Likewise, looking forward to discussing the project." Richard. "I think we could be very good for each other." Jennifer. "I think so too." The timestamp showed their conversation had started 3 days ago. 3 days of flirting disguised as business talk. 3 days of my wife planning tonight's humiliation while I pressed her work dresses and wished her luck with important clients. I scrolled through more messages, each one a small betrayal that added up to something much larger. Richard's suite number. Jennifer's promise to dress to impress. His suggestion that they keep their business relationship private until the deal was finalized. My hands shook as I read the most recent exchange, sent while I was walking to my truck. Richard. "Your husband seems unimpressive." Jennifer. "Danny's a good man, but he doesn't understand ambition." Richard. "Some men are content with small lives. Others want more." Jennifer. "I want more." I stared at those 3 words until they burned into my retinas. I want more. Not more success, not more opportunities. More than me. More than our marriage. More than the life we'd built together. The penthouse suite windows glowed golden against the night sky. I could see shadows moving behind the curtains, 2 figures standing close together. As I watched, the shadows merged into one. I started the truck and drove home to our empty house. The next morning, Jennifer returned with coffee and pastries from the expensive bakery downtown. She kissed my cheek like nothing had happened, chattering about the successful networking opportunities at the gala. Richard Blackwell is very interested in tech flow services. This could be huge for my career. I'm sure it could. I sipped my coffee and watched her bustle around the kitchen. She was practically glowing, energized in a way I hadn't seen in months. How was your late meeting? Productive, very productive. She paused, studying my face. Danny, about last night. Richard can be a bit intense, but he's an important client. I understand. Do you, because you seemed upset? I set down my coffee cup carefully. My wife left a party with another man and didn't come home until morning. How should I seem? Jennifer's cheeks flushed. It wasn't like that. We were working. Working. Yes, working. Some of us have careers that require sacrifice. The dig hit its mark. Some of us. Not me with my grease-stained coveralls and blue-collar clientele. Not me with my small-town boat shop and practical dreams. You're right, I said. Some of us do. She softened, mistaking my agreement for surrender. I know this is hard, but if this deal goes through, everything changes. We could afford that house on Beacon Hill you liked. Maybe take that European vacation we've been talking about. I nodded and smiled and played the supportive husband role, but inside, I was planning. That afternoon, while Jennifer attended a strategy session that probably involved Richard's hotel suite again, I visited my old friend Tommy at his motorcycle repair shop. Tommy Reeves was built like a linebacker and had the kind of face that discouraged arguments. We'd served together in the Coast Guard before civilian life pulled us in different directions. He understood loyalty, brotherhood, and what happened to men who betrayed both. Danny Morrison, you sorry son of a gun. Tommy looked up from the Harley he was rebuilding, grease streaking his forearms. What brings you to my humble establishment? Need some advice, and maybe a favor. Tommy wiped his hands on a shop rag and gestured toward 2 folding chairs near the coffee pot. His shop was organized chaos, tools, and parts arranged according to a logic only he understood. The smell of motor oil and possibility hung in the air like incense. Talk to me. I told him everything. The gala, the humiliation, the hotel suite, the text messages. Tommy listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each detail. So this rich prick thinks he can buy your wife and embarrass you in front of the whole town? That's about the size of it. And Jennifer's going along with it? More than going along. She's driving the bus. Tommy cracked his knuckles, a sound like small bones breaking. What do you want to do about it? I want them to understand that actions have consequences. I want them to feel what I felt last night, standing in that ballroom like a fool. You want revenge. I want justice. Tommy's smile was sharp as broken glass. Sometimes they're the same thing. Tommy's shop became our war room. We spent Sunday afternoon mapping out Richard Blackwell's life like generals planning a siege. Tommy had connections throughout the service industry, guys who cleaned offices, delivered packages, and maintained the infrastructure that kept Harbor Heights running. Richard's staying at the Harbor Grand indefinitely, Tommy reported, consulting notes scrawled on a greasy napkin. Penthouse suite, monthly rate, drives a black Mercedes S-Class, parks it at the marina when he's checking on his development project. What about security? Hotel's got cameras in the lobby and hallways, but the parking garage is mostly blind spots. Marina's got one guard who spends most of his time in the office watching Netflix. I studied the marina layout Tommy had sketched. Richard's car would be isolated, vulnerable, perfect for the kind of message I wanted to send. This has to be smart, I said. Nothing that traces back to us. Nothing that gives him ammunition to play victim. Understood. What about Jennifer? That was the harder question. My wife wasn't just a victim of Richard's manipulation. She was an active participant, making choices that tore our marriage apart. But she was still my wife, at least legally. She gets consequences too, but different ones. Monday morning, I put the first phase into motion. While Jennifer showered, I swapped her real phone back for the decoy, making sure she'd take the modified device to work. The decoy looked identical, but had some interesting features my Coast Guard electronics training had made possible. Every text message would be forwarded to a burner phone I'd bought with cash. Every call would be recorded. Most importantly, I could send messages that appeared to come from her number. Jennifer kissed me goodbye, distracted and eager to start her day. She was meeting Richard for lunch, she said. More business discussions. Have fun, I told her. At noon, while they were presumably discussing business over expensive wine, I drove to the marina. Richard's Mercedes sat in the VIP parking section, black paint gleaming in the autumn sun. No other cars nearby, no witnesses except the seagulls. I'd brought my toolkit and a few special additions. The valve stem tool looked innocent enough, just standard automotive equipment. But when I used it to let the air out of his rear tires, the effect was immediate and satisfying. Next came the fish. Tommy's cousin worked at the seafood processing plant and had provided a bag of fish scraps that were just beginning to turn. I popped the hood and distributed the organic matter around the engine compartment, focusing on areas near the air intake and heating vents. The final touch was a note, printed on generic paper with no fingerprints. Some things stink worse than others. Enjoy the aroma of betrayal. I tucked the note under his windshield wiper and drove away, checking my mirrors for security guards or witnesses. The marina remained peaceful, just another quiet Monday afternoon by the water. That evening, Jennifer came home later than usual, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "How was your day?" I asked, the picture of domestic normalcy. "Incredible. Richard's project is even bigger than I thought. He's planning a whole waterfront district, restaurants, shopping, luxury condos. TechFlow could handle all the digital infrastructure." "Sounds ambitious?" "It is, and he wants me to be his primary contact for everything." She practically bounced on her toes. "Danny, this could make my career. Regional manager, maybe even vice president." "What does that mean for us?" Jennifer's enthusiasm dimmed slightly. "It means some changes. More travel, longer hours, networking events. You understand?" I understood perfectly. She was telling me I'd be seeing even less of her, that Richard Blackwell would be consuming more of her time and attention, that our marriage was becoming a secondary consideration in her pursuit of professional success. "Of course," I said, "whatever you need." She smiled and kissed my cheek, then disappeared upstairs to take a shower. While water ran in the bathroom, I checked the burner phone for forwarded messages. "Richard, lunch was delicious. You're even more impressive than I thought. Jennifer, thank you. I'm excited about our partnership. Richard, I have some ideas for expanding our relationship. Are you free tonight? Jennifer, Danny's working late at the shop. I could meet you for drinks." Working late at the shop? I was sitting in our living room, but according to my wife, I was conveniently absent. The lie came so easily to her that I wondered how many others I'd missed. I used Jennifer's phone to send Richard a message. "Actually, change of plans. Danny came home early. Rain check?" Richard's response was immediate. "Of course. Tomorrow, then. I have something special planned." Something special. I was sure he did. Tuesday brought the first fruits of my marina adventure. Tommy called around lunchtime, barely containing his laughter. "You should have seen it, Danny. Richard's car wouldn't start, tires flat, and when the tow truck guy opened the hood, the smell knocked him backward. Took 3 air fresheners and a full detailing just to make it drivable." Any idea who might have done such a thing? Complete mystery, though I heard Richard screaming at the marina security guard about inadequate surveillance, threatened to sue the whole operation. Terrible shame. Gets better. He had to take a taxi to his lunch meeting, showed up 40 minutes late smelling like low tide. The restaurant manager kept asking if something was wrong with the seafood. I pictured Richard's humiliation, his carefully constructed image cracking under the pressure of public embarrassment. It wasn't enough. Not yet, but it was a start. That evening, Jennifer announced she'd be working late again. Another strategy session with Richard, more planning for their ambitious project. "Will you be home tonight?" I asked. "Probably not. These meetings run long, and Richard likes to be thorough." I bet he did. After Jennifer left, I drove to the Harbor Grand and positioned myself in the parking garage where I could watch the elevator. She arrived at 8:30, looking stunning in a black cocktail dress I'd never seen before. Richard met her at the elevator doors, his hands immediately finding her waist as they embraced. They weren't hiding anymore. Whatever pretense of professional behavior they'd maintained was gone, replaced by the kind of intimate body language that left no doubt about their relationship. I sat in my truck and watched my marriage officially end through a hotel elevator's closing doors. But instead of despair, I felt something else entirely. Clarity, purpose. The last vestige of guilt about my revenge plans evaporated like morning fog. Jennifer had made her choice. Now she'd live with the consequences. Wednesday morning brought unexpected intelligence. Amanda Cross called while Jennifer was getting ready for work, her voice carrying that artificial sweetness that meant trouble. "Danny, it's Amanda from TechFlow. Is Jennifer available?" "She's in the shower. Can I take a message?" "Actually, maybe you can help me. There's been some confusion about the Blackwell project. Our CEO is asking questions about Jennifer's involvement, and frankly, some of the arrangements seem unusual." I kept my voice neutral. Unusual how? Well, Richard's been very specific about working exclusively with Jennifer. He's also made some requests that fall outside our normal service parameters, private meetings, after-hours consultations, that sort of thing. Amanda was fishing, looking for information she could use. But her call confirmed what I'd suspected. Jennifer's relationship with Richard was raising eyebrows at TechFlow. I'm sure Jennifer can clarify everything when she gets to the office. Of course. Though between you and me, Danny, I'd be careful if I were you. Richard Blackwell has a reputation for getting what he wants, regardless of who gets hurt in the process. The warning felt genuine, despite Amanda's obvious agenda. After I hung up, I found Jennifer applying makeup in our bedroom mirror. Amanda called. Something about questions from your CEO? Jennifer's hand paused mid-lipstick application. What kind of questions? She didn't say, just mentioned some confusion about the Blackwell project. I'm sure it's nothing. Amanda likes to create drama where none exists. Jennifer capped her lipstick and turned to face me. She's jealous, you know. Richard specifically requested to work with me, not her. Why do you think that is? Because I'm better at my job. The answer came too quickly, too defensive. Richard recognizes talent when he sees it. I nodded like I believed her, but we both knew talent wasn't the only thing Richard had recognized. After Jennifer left for work, I spent the morning researching Richard Blackwell. Public records, newspaper articles, business filings. The picture that emerged was troubling. Richard had a pattern. In Boston, he'd been involved with a married marketing executive who'd handled his previous development project. That relationship had ended when her husband discovered the affair and filed for divorce. The marketing executive lost her job, her marriage, and her reputation. Richard moved on to the next city, the next project, the next married woman who could be useful to him. I printed out the articles and added them to my growing file. Jennifer needed to understand what she was dealing with, but I doubted she'd listen to warnings from her soon-to-be ex-husband. That afternoon, I implemented Phase 2 of my plan. Using Jennifer's cloned phone, I sent a series of messages designed to create confusion and suspicion. To Richard, had second thoughts about tonight. This is moving too fast. To Amanda, need to talk. Richard's making demands that could compromise the company. To Jennifer's boss, concerned about potential conflicts of interest with Blackwell project. Should we discuss? Each message was calculated to create doubt, to make people question what they thought they knew about Jennifer's professional relationship with Richard. The responses came quickly. Richard, what's wrong? I thought we understood each other. Amanda, finally ready to admit you're in over your head? Jennifer's boss, please see me first thing tomorrow morning. By evening, Jennifer was frantic. Her real phone buzzed constantly with confused and angry messages from colleagues who thought she'd sent contradictory signals about the Blackwell project. I don't understand what's happening, she told me over dinner. Everyone's acting like I said things I never said. Maybe there's been some miscommunication? More than miscommunication. Someone's deliberately sabotaging me. Her eyes narrowed. Amanda's been gunning for this account since day one. I bet she's spreading rumors, trying to make me look incompetent. I made sympathetic noises while internally celebrating. Jennifer was exactly where I wanted her, paranoid, defensive, and isolated from her professional support network. What does Richard think about all this? He's frustrated. He specifically requested to work with me, and now the company's questioning our arrangement. Jennifer pushed food around her plate without eating. He's talking about taking his business elsewhere if TechFlow can't provide consistent service. That would be bad for your career. It would be a disaster. This project was supposed to be my breakthrough, and now it's turning into a nightmare. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. I'm sure you'll figure it out. You always do. She squeezed back, grateful for the support. If she only knew where the sabotage was really coming from, she might be less appreciative. That night, Jennifer worked late in her home office, trying to untangle the confusion surrounding the Blackwell project. I could hear her on the phone with Richard, their voices tense and urgent through the closed door. While she was distracted, I slipped out to the garage and prepared for the next phase of my plan. Tommy had provided some additional supplies, a small GPS tracker, a bottle of liquid that smelled remarkably like skunk spray, and a key that would fit most Mercedes models. Richard's car had been repaired and detailed, but the man himself was rattled. According to Tommy's sources, he'd been complaining loudly about the marina's security and demanding compensation for the damage to his vehicle. Time to give him something new to complain about. I drove to the Harbor Grand around midnight when the hotel bar had closed and the parking garage was nearly empty. Richard's Mercedes sat in its usual spot, black paint gleaming under the fluorescent lights. The GPS tracker went under the rear bumper, held in place by a magnetic mount. The skunk spray went into the air conditioning intake, just a few drops that would circulate through the ventilation system. And the key let me access the interior, where I left a final calling card. On the driver's seat, I placed a printed photograph from the Yacht Club gala. Richard and Jennifer laughing together, their body language intimate and unmistakable. Across the bottom, I'd written a single word in red ink. Exposed. Let him wonder who was watching, who knew about their affair, and what they might do with that information. I was back home before Jennifer finished her phone call with Richard. She emerged from the office looking exhausted and defeated. "Everything all right?" I asked. "I hope so. Richard's being very understanding about the confusion at work, but I can tell he's losing patience." She rubbed her temples. "I can't afford to lose this client, Danny. My whole future depends on making this project work." "Then you'd better make sure nothing else goes wrong." Jennifer nodded grimly, not realizing she was talking to the architect of her problems. She went to bed worried and frustrated, while I lay awake planning the next day's chaos. The game was accelerating, and I was winning. Thursday morning brought the explosion I'd been orchestrating. Jennifer's phone rang at 6 a.m., Richard's voice loud enough for me to hear through the speaker. "What the hell is this photograph supposed to mean?" Jennifer sat up in bed, instantly alert. "What photograph?" "The one someone left in my car. You and me at the yacht club, with a very interesting message written across it." I watched my wife's face cycle through confusion, fear, and calculation. She glanced at me, but I pretended to be asleep, listening through half-closed eyes. "I don't know what you're talking about," Jennifer whispered, climbing out of bed and padding to the bathroom for privacy. But I could still hear Richard's angry voice. "Someone's watching us, Jennifer. Someone knows about our relationship, and they're playing games. First the car vandalism, now this. I don't like being threatened." "Maybe it's just coincidence. Random vandalism?" "Random vandalism doesn't include photographs of us together. This is personal." Jennifer's voice dropped even lower. "You think Danny knows?" "Your husband, the boat mechanic. I doubt he has the sophistication for this kind of psychological warfare." "Wrong again, Richard. But I appreciated the underestimation." Their conversation continued for several more minutes, growing more paranoid and accusatory. Richard suspected business rivals or disgruntled marina employees. Jennifer worried about corporate espionage or jealous colleagues. Neither considered that the enemy might be hiding in plain sight. After Jennifer left for work, looking haggard and distracted, I activated the final phase of my plan. The GPS tracker showed Richard's Mercedes heading toward TechFlow's offices, probably for another crisis meeting with my wife. Perfect timing. I called Tommy from the burner phone. "It's showtime." "Copy that. My boys are in position." Tommy's boys were a collection of motorcycle enthusiasts who shared his appreciation for justice and his disdain for entitled rich guys who thought money made them untouchable. They weren't criminals, just working-class men who understood loyalty and consequences. The plan was simple: public embarrassment on a scale that matched Richard's public humiliation of me at the yacht club. He'd used his wealth and status to make me look small in front of Harbor Heights' social elite. Now I'd return the favor. At noon, Richard's Mercedes pulled into the parking lot of Seaside Cafe, Harbor Heights' most popular lunch spot. The GPS tracker had told me he'd be there, probably meeting Jennifer for another business lunch that looked more like a romantic rendezvous. Tommy's crew was waiting. 6 motorcycles surrounded Richard's car as he tried to park, engines revving loud enough to shake windows. The riders wore full helmets and leather jackets, looking like something from a movie about biker gangs. Richard honked his horn and shouted through his closed windows, but the motorcycles didn't move. Instead, they began a slow, synchronized circle around his car, trapping him in the parking space while curious onlookers gathered to watch the spectacle. I observed from across the street, parked behind a delivery truck with a clear view of the action. Richard's face was red with rage as he gestured frantically at the circling motorcycles. Several restaurant patrons had come outside to watch, some recording the scene with their phones. After 5 minutes of automotive intimidation, the motorcycles pulled away as suddenly as they'd appeared. Richard sat in his car for several more minutes, probably trying to process what had just happened, before finally getting out and walking toward the restaurant on shaky legs. The psychological impact was exactly what I'd hoped for. Richard Blackwell, master of the universe, had been reduced to a frightened man trapped in his expensive car by working-class guys on motorcycles. His sense of invulnerability was cracking, but I wasn't finished. That evening, Jennifer came home pale and shaken. She'd been at the restaurant when the motorcycle incident occurred, watching her powerful lover reduced to a quivering mess by 6 guys on bikes. "It was terrifying," she told me over dinner. "These bikers just surrounded Richard's car and wouldn't let him out. He was convinced they were going to hurt him. That's awful. Did he call the police? What could he tell them? The bikers didn't actually do anything illegal. They just intimidated him. Maybe it was random. Wrong place, wrong time. Jennifer shook her head. Richard doesn't think so. He's convinced someone's targeting him, trying to scare him away from the development project. Who would do that? Competitors, maybe, or local business owners who don't want the waterfront developed. She pushed food around her plate nervously. Richard's talking about hiring private security. Sounds expensive. He can afford it. But Danny, I'm scared. If someone's willing to threaten Richard, what might they do to people associated with him? The fear in her voice was genuine, and for a moment I felt a flicker of guilt. But then I remembered the yacht club, the hotel suite, the lies and betrayal. Jennifer had made choices that led to this moment. She didn't get to play victim now. I'm sure you'll be fine. You're just a business associate, right? Jennifer's eyes flickered away from mine. Right, just business. But we both knew that was another lie in a relationship built on deception. That night, while Jennifer tossed and turned beside me, I implemented the final stroke of my masterpiece. Using her cloned phone, I sent one last message to Richard. This has gone too far. I can't see you anymore. My marriage is more important than any business deal. Richard's response was immediate and furious. You can't be serious after everything we've shared. I'm sorry. It's over. Jennifer, don't do this. We're perfect together. I can give you everything your husband never could. My decision is final. Please don't contact me again. I turned off the burner phone and deleted all the forwarding software from Jennifer's decoy device. By morning, she'd have her real phone back and would discover that her affair with Richard Blackwell had apparently ended while she slept. The confusion and accusations that followed would tear apart whatever remained of their relationship. Richard would think Jennifer had betrayed him. Jennifer would think Richard was lying about the breakup messages. Neither would trust the other enough to rebuild what they'd lost, and I would watch it all burn from the front row. The patient husband who'd been wronged but never suspected of revenge. Justice, as Tommy had said, sometimes looked exactly like vengeance. Friday morning brought chaos that exceeded even my expectations. Jennifer discovered the breakup messages on her real phone and immediately called Richard, her voice shrill with panic and confusion. What do you mean I broke up with you? I never sent those messages. I could hear Richard's angry response through the phone speaker. Don't play games with me, Jennifer. I have the text right here. You said it was over, that your marriage was more important than our relationship. I was asleep next to my husband when those were supposedly sent. Look at the timestamps. Then someone else has access to your phone. Who else knows about us? The paranoia in Richard's voice was delicious. He was spiraling, seeing enemies everywhere. Trust shattered beyond repair. Jennifer spent the morning trying to convince Richard that she hadn't ended their affair, while he accused her of psychological manipulation and corporate espionage. Their relationship, built on deception and betrayal, couldn't survive the introduction of doubt and suspicion. By afternoon, the situation had deteriorated completely. Richard called TechFlow's CEO directly, withdrawing his business and making vague accusations about unprofessional conduct and security breaches. Jennifer's boss summoned her for an emergency meeting that lasted 3 hours and ended with her suspension pending an internal investigation. She came home devastated, her career dreams crumbling around her. They think I compromised the company's integrity, she told me, tears streaming down her face. Richard's telling everyone I'm unstable, that I sent him threatening messages and then denied it. I handed her a tissue and made sympathetic noises. That's terrible. Why would he lie about something like that? I don't know. Maybe he's having second thoughts about the project. Maybe he's trying to distance himself from the whole situation. She couldn't even admit the truth about their affair, not even now when it had cost her everything. What happens next? Internal investigation. Possible termination. My reputation in the industry is ruined. Jennifer collapsed onto the couch, her carefully constructed facade finally cracking. I've lost everything, Danny. My job, my future, my chance at something bigger than this small town. I sat beside her and took her hand. You still have me? She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes, perhaps seeing me clearly for the first time in months. Do I? After everything that's happened, after the way I've treated you? It was the closest she'd come to acknowledging her betrayal. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to play the forgiving husband who'd stand by his wife through adversity. But a larger part of me remembered the yacht club, the hotel suite, the casual cruelty of her lies. I don't know, I said honestly. That depends on what everything that's happened actually includes. Jennifer's face went pale. What do you mean? I'm not stupid, Jennifer. I know about the hotel suite, the late-night meetings, the way you looked at Richard Blackwell like he was your salvation and I was your anchor. She opened her mouth to deny it, then closed it again. The lies had finally run out. It wasn't supposed to happen, she whispered. It just did. Which part? The affair or getting caught? All of it. I never meant to hurt you, Danny. I just wanted more. More excitement, more opportunity, more life than what we had. More than me. I thought I did. But now? She gestured helplessly at the wreckage of her ambitions. Now I don't know what I want. It was too little, too late. The woman sitting beside me was a stranger wearing my wife's face, someone who'd traded our marriage for a fantasy that had evaporated at the first sign of trouble. I need some time to think, I told her. How much time? I don't know. Maybe a lot? Jennifer nodded, tears flowing again. I deserve that. I deserve all of this. She was right, though she didn't know how right. Every consequence she was facing had been carefully orchestrated by the husband she'd betrayed. The motorcycle intimidation, the sabotaged messages, the paranoia that had destroyed her relationship with Richard, all of it had been my doing. I felt no guilt about the deception. Jennifer had made her choices, and I'd simply ensured that those choices carried appropriate consequences. She'd wanted excitement and got chaos. She'd wanted more than her marriage and lost everything instead. That evening, Richard Blackwell checked out of the Harbor Grand and left Harbor Heights permanently. Tommy's sources reported that he'd been muttering about crazy women and small-town conspiracies as he loaded his luggage into his detailed Mercedes. The development project died with his departure, leaving the waterfront unchanged and TechFlow scrambling to explain the lost contract to their investors. Jennifer spent the weekend in our guest bedroom, ostensibly to give me space, but really because she couldn't face sharing a bed with the husband she'd betrayed. I let her believe the separation was temporary, a cooling-off period that might lead to reconciliation, but I knew better. Some betrayals were too fundamental to forgive, some trust too shattered to rebuild. Jennifer had shown me who she really was when she thought I wasn't paying attention. I'd simply returned the favor. On Sunday evening, she knocked on our bedroom door. "Danny, can we talk?" "Come in." She sat on the edge of the bed, looking fragile and uncertain. "I've been thinking about what you said, about needing time." "And?" "I think maybe I should stay somewhere else for a while, give you the space you need to figure out what you want." It was the opening I'd been waiting for. "That might be best." "I could stay with my sister in Boston, look for work there, start over." "Good idea." Jennifer's face crumpled slightly, perhaps hoping I'd fight for her, beg her to stay and work things out. But that man, the devoted husband who'd stood by her through everything, had been humiliated to destruction at the yacht club gala. "So this is it? We're really over?" I looked at my wife, this woman who'd shared my bed and my dreams and my trust, who'd thrown it all away for a fantasy of something better. "We've been over for a while," I said. "We're just making it official." Jennifer nodded and left the room. I heard her packing through the thin walls, gathering the remnants of the life she'd chosen to abandon. By Monday morning, she was gone, leaving only a note apologizing for everything and promising to contact a lawyer about divorce proceedings. I sat in our empty house, surrounded by the silence of my victory, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Richard Blackwell had learned that money couldn't buy immunity from consequences. Jennifer had discovered that betrayal carried a price higher than she'd been willing to pay, and I'd proven that underestimating the quiet husband was a mistake neither of them would make again. The game was over, and I'd won completely. In Harbor Heights, they'd remember this story for years. The rich developer who'd fled town under mysterious circumstances, and the ambitious woman who'd lost everything chasing dreams that turned to nightmares. But they'd never suspect the boat mechanic who'd orchestrated it all from the shadows, the patient man who'd turned their own weapons against them and walked away clean. Some victories were worth savoring in silence.